this week's Fantasy Stud Muffins.
All right, so as we reflect on the guys that had big-time performances that genuinely won people fantasy leagues this week, I want to put them into a little bit of a year-long context for our listeners as well, because this is kind of the culmination of either a surprising year for a lot of guys or a surprising week. So we'll talk about them a little bit. But the big names, Cousins and Bortles.
Whee!
I mean, if there was ever a time when it was okay to kiss your cousins,
Hey!
it would be this weekend because, man, 31 for 365, 4 touchdowns, and possibly the most memorable negative 4 yards of the season, what I'm titling Kneegate.
I've never seen anything like it. It was delightful.
You were on delay, and we were just – we couldn't type in big enough capital letters
I needed a font increase.
I did. I needed some Comic Sans 42 to
Now, if you didn't
it had to be shameful. You had to be shameful.
If you didn't see the play and don't know what we're talking about, let me just ask you a question, listener. If the half is almost here and time is going to expire, but you're on like the 2-yard line
With no timeouts.
should you A, throw a quick slant? Should you B, kick the field goal? Should you C, spike the ball, or D, take a knee, victory formation, and just stick it to him? Because he went with D, and he took a knee, and they went into the half with 0 points.
The best part was the two parts that stuck out to me beyond just the lunacy of the play, because something happened in his mind. But the play was supposed to be a fade to Pierre Garçon, and then if he catches it, it's a touchdown. If not, they got a second to kick a field goal. And the second he took the knee, Pierre Garçon just started marching off the field with his hands on his hips. He knew exactly what had happened. Jay Gruden was completely confused. Obviously didn't mean much to your fantasy day or it could have.
Yeah,
I guess it could have because they could have scored again.
I enjoyed watching Cousins right after the knee stand up and go, oh, what am I doing? And then try to spike the ball again.
He tries to run.
He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. His body was like trying to spike, trying to run, trying to hide all at the same time.
Yeah, you can't hide from that.
One of my favorite tweets of the weekend was somebody messaged. They said, thank goodness for the Colts play, that fake punt play. Otherwise, that would have been the worst play of the year for Cousins. And you're like, oh, man, thank you for reminding me of the Colts fake punt.
That was something special as well. And I thought.
See?
I forgot about, hey, let's move every blocker out of the way. Snap the ball. We'll get him.
Somehow these plays just happen, and they're magnificent, and we should find a way to reward them.
Professionals. It is amazing.
We thought it happened yesterday with the coin flip with Matthew Slater in New England. Now, it came out that basically Belichick let him off the hook saying, hey, I wanted a kick. But
yeah, liar.
No, it's Belichick. So
he just did it a couple weeks ago to the Broncos.
Yeah. So anyways, Blake Bortles showing that he is indeed a fantasy force. 27 for 368 and 4 touchdowns. Big time game from him. He's going to be entering in. He's already a top 5 fantasy quarterback, and with the performances of some of the guys ahead of him, he may move up even more. Drew Brees had a really great performance where there were questions about his injury all week long. He came out through for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. Brandon Cooks helped him.
And the same injury that Peyton Manning has missed several weeks with.
Yes.
Am I right?
You are correct. Yeah, he's got better doctors,
I guess.
I will say this, in the long-term dynasty context for Drew Brees, it is my belief that Drew Brees and Sean Payton will both be there next year. I have said this for a while. I know differing opinions on the show. Jason thinks that Sean Payton will be gone. I know there have been discussions about San Diego now with Sean Payton. Jason's conjecture has always been Indianapolis. Those things are very possible. I believe that they will both be back. I believe Brees will take a pay cut, and that team, I think you saw yesterday, Brees still can play the game of football at a very high level.
Well, and yesterday there was reports coming out of the Brees will be forced to take a discount. If he wants to stay in New Orleans, he's going to have to take a pay cut.
Which we've seen with Brady, we've seen with Manning.
But we'll see if he's willing to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So Ryan Fitzpatrick against New England,
yeah,
three more touchdowns. Those wide receivers, They do it every single game. 2 touchdowns for Marshall, 1 for Decker, and no one else ever catches any.
No.
But it's great. It's actually a really great thing to bank on when you're an owner of Decker or Marshall, because in the red zone, all the plays are drawn up for those guys. I mean, you have very few touchdowns scored by anybody else unless it's, a dump off to Bilal Powell, who, by the way, had a pretty good game again. Matthew Stafford, Mike's start of the week.
Yeah.
Had a very good game.
Yeah, he did. He was 29 for 301 yards, 2 touchdowns. He gets to play the Bears next week.
Yeah. That's not so bad.
No.
And Jason's start of the week, Brandon Weeden.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe not. But
no one's start of the week.
No one's start of the week. Yeah, apparently his mom actually started Matt Stafford in her league.
Sad.
In her league. So
Brandon Weeden, man.
Isn't this funny? Brandon Weeden and Ryan Mallett got to start some games for different teams yesterday. Ryan Mallett looked like he was happy to have a job.
Yeah, and he got it done.
Yeah, he did.
That was a shocking game. The Ravens versus the Steelers, if you watched any of that.
2 of the Steelers' losses.
Oh, that is one thing I wanted to say. I was going to talk about before we started the show, and I said, let's just wait and start the show. Divisional matchups, you need to throw everything out the window. St. Louis went to Seattle and dominated. The Seattle Seahawks. Not the Seattle Seahawks from week 1 or week 3 or week 5. The Seattle Seahawks that were extremely efficient in the pocket with Russell Wilson and throwing the ball downfield and blowing people out of the water, got blown out of the water. And it showed that Seattle has some weaknesses on that offensive line, that if a team can exploit them with the pass rush, that team cannot do what it's done over the past few weeks. And we know the matchups that they had over the past few weeks were different than the St. Louis Rams, right? They were weaker. Let's just put it that way.
That's my point, was going to be the offensive line. We saw them earlier in the year when they were losing games was because of the offensive line. If you remember that primetime game against the Lions, where Russell Wilson was running for his life every single play, and in that game they happened to just manage one scramble for a touchdown or for a deep pass that turned into a touchdown. That's what happened this week. The Rams, their defensive line was just eating them alive. So that is a concern for the Seahawks moving forward.
And it goes to show too, with Aaron Rodgers having the second worst game of the year, their offensive line has the same type of issues, and they suffered more injuries this week. We know better than anybody as Arizona Cardinal fans from years past that ignoring the offensive line in the draft or having issues on the offensive line, it doesn't matter how good of a quarterback you are.
It gets you.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson, would you
run.
say Russell Wilson is above average in terms of evasiveness in the pocket?
Yes.
It still doesn't matter.
No.
These are professional athletes, professional defensive linemen and linebackers that can run pretty fast.
Yeah, if they're in practice,
if you don't block them,
hey, Russell, do a 3-on-1 drill. See if you can get away from these 3 NFL defensive backs. He's going to lose.
Yeah. So, wide receivers.
Julio
Jones. Hey,
yeah.
always start your studs?
He came through.
Unless their names are Brady and Big Ben. And it is a dangerous dance, but Julio was humongous, literally, on that play. I mean, Matt Ryan, have I not been saying this all year? Throw the ball deep to the giant man who catches the ball.
You've been
he
saying
drives
it all
me
year.
Crazy. And they just threw it up to him. He had Luke Kuechly on him, and he had Kirk Coleman on him. It didn't matter. You just high pointed it, and then he ran it into the end zone. And that counts as 7 points or 6 points.
It was like Luke Kuechly was wearing a football hat.
Oh, right.
Julio
and
Jones
he just took the hat off.
Took his party hat and said, yoink. Thank you.
That's a pretty good way to describe it. 9 for 178 and a touchdown. Brandon Marshall, 8 for 115, 2 touchdowns. Sets a career high in touchdowns this year under Ryan Fitzpatrick's, with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Beardliness. Allen Hurns and Allen Robinson.
Monster games.
Combo maker.
Oh, that 90-yard touchdown.
Yes. See,
I'll remember it forever.
This is exactly what I mean. You're a little focused.
I'm a little focused, but I'm
all these names
very happy.
And you remember one.
Oh, no. During the game, I remembered 2, Allen Hurns and Denard Robinson, whom I hated every time that they touched the ball because they had half of the right name. Go on.
Oh, because one's an Allen and one's a
yes.
Robinson.
Doug Baldwin.
I don't know if I want you to win or lose tonight. All right.
Doug Baldwin had a good game.
All right, you guys know what touchdown number that is for Doug Baldwin, right?
Remind me.
Oh, I want to see
72?
14?
14.
14, yeah.
14 touchdowns for Doug Baldwin, 8 for 118 and a touchdown. Jordan Matthews had another. Hold on.
Oh, the garbage man can.
This man.
I tweeted out about Jordan Matthews.
Waste management is his new nickname.
I said sanitation engineer superstar. That guy gets it done.
It's incredible.
When the game is out of hand.
Yes. When the game is done, he gets it done. DeAndre Hopkins.
It's the game after the game. Jordan Matthews.
The game after the game. Led by your team captains, Jordan Matthews, Danny Woodhead,
and Austin Safarian-Jacobs.
With 1 second left. Told you he was great. All right, DeAndre Hopkins, Brandon Cooks, Dontrell Inman, Pierre Garçon, other guys that got it done. Cooks was my start of the week.
Yeah,
it took much insight to start that guy the way he's been playing.
Brandon Cooks has been balling out.
Did you happen to see his catch amongst 5 defenders?
The one where Drew Brees threw it right over the guy's hand and then
under 3 other hands.
It was like you had to choreograph that and film it.
What was
6
the movie
times
where
to
they
get
bend
that shot right.
where they bend the bullet?
Wanted.
Oh,
yeah, Wanted. Yeah, that's what happened.
Oh, I was gonna go with the like a Mission Impossible laser web.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then the ball just found the right trajectory, right path, right through for Brandon Cooks.
All right. So anybody else you want to talk? It was nice to see Hopkins come through for fantasy owners when it mattered.
He had Brandon Weeden throwing the ball, of course.
So it was kind of a given, yeah. Garçon also, he made his mark in that game for sure. Garçon, to me, is a lot like an Anquan Boldin now, where, it looks like his speed isn't there anymore. I don't see separation on the underneath routes from Garçon the way I used to. But he's just a solid, dependable wide receiver and a good complement to Jordan Reed and Deshaun Jackson as the Redskins begin their Super Bowl run.
Yeah. And Dontrell Inman, if you're going to rely on that from Dontrell Inman, you should not. After watching him play, he's just, man, that guy drops a lot of passes.
Running backs that came through this week, none more important than D'Angelo Williams and Tim Hightower. These guys were money. D'Angelo in part because Big Ben wasn't, and because of some fortuitous down on the one situation there where Williams had 2 touchdowns. He came through in a big way. He also caught 6 passes for 53 yards. Tim Hightower was monstrous, turning back the clock, 27 for 122, 2 touchdowns, 3 for 47 through the air.
And CJ, we tweeted out, so hopefully you were following us, CJ Spiller, when the news was pouring out, Spiller's going to be inactive.
Yep.
And we're not sure what that means for his future in New Orleans. It can't feel good.
Oh, he's got to be gone.
When Travaris Cadet comes in and plays very well, including a 40-plus yard touchdown catch from Brees, and you're like, well, C.J. Spiller is he just not that good? Or he just can't stay healthy?
Square peg, round hole situation there for Spiller in New Orleans. There's no way he's back. They said he was banged up all year, I think, to justify the healthy scratch. The healthy scratch. All right.
The unhealthy scratch.
So, who else? I mean, big surprise this week for everybody was the performance of Frank Gore in fantasy football with 2 touchdowns, 15 for 85. And you also had big games from Latavius Murray. David Johnson had a very big game in total yards, got another touchdown. Buck Allen had a very good game. Any of these guys that you want to talk about?
Move for next week. I think Buck Allen is interesting. I don't know what his matchup is, but you gotta believe he has worked himself back into the good graces of Coach Harbaugh for Baltimore. Do you guys have trust in him moving forward to Week 17 after coming off?
It really depends on the Bengals situation for sitting guys next week. After what happens tonight, if they're still in it, then I don't love Buck Allen.
Yeah, I agree. I was just going to bring up the Bengals. That's their matchup in Week 17. I don't really like that matchup for his skill set.
That's fair.
Latavius Murray had a big game.
He did. He had a great matchup against the Chargers, the worst running defense, not the worst, the worst or the second worst. I can't remember who's statistically worse. Them or the Browns.
I think the Browns are the worst.
So good matchup.
He did what Lamar Miller could not do against the San Diego Chargers.
And Lamar Miller
received carries.
Well, yeah, Lamar received 9 of them and got 12 yards in that game. So let's not let him off the hook.
Okay, that's fair.
But Latavius Murray had a big game. Charles Sims making his contributions as normal. He's been a very reliable, Bilal Powell, James White type of guy this whole entire year.
Helps when Doug Martin fumbles twice.
Yeah, that's true. Anybody else? Jason did mention Lamar Miller had a pretty good week on a very, really bad team that's going to have a lot of change in this offseason.
Jerick McKinnon, the game was very out of hand, so who knows how hard the Giants defense was actually playing. But that's 2 good games in a row for McKinnon. This is more speaking to dynasty.
Let's say long term.
Dynasty or a keeper league for the people who have been holding on to McKinnon, just hoping, because McKinnon's his athletic measurables are just top of the chart. The guy is an athletic freak.
He reminds me a lot of Christine Michael.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in play style, but in what's happened to him. Measurables off the chart. These big end-of-game runs. Michael had a bunch of those in years gone by where he'd come in for 3 or 4 runs and bust off a big run. Joey Randall did it too, in Dallas, where he'd come in and break up a D. But, yeah, McKinnon has a lot of upside and potential, and it's nice to have him behind Adrian Peterson right now, and is definitely a dynasty consideration. Hey, both of the best tight ends this week, war number 86.
Whee! Oh, man. Rule 86.
Got it done. And we meet Jordan Reed, but also Zach Ertz.
Yeah, Zach Ertz finally flashing some of that upside. Finally.
13 for 122, even had a couple drops, didn't get in the end zone. But Jordan Reed was 9 for 129 and 2. At one point in this game, I believe a listener tweeted out that he was on pace for about 380 yards and 8 touchdowns.
And
not bad.
For Ertz, that's also including a completely botched throw by Bradford where Ertz had scrambled past a broken defense and would have scored.
That would have been like a 50-yard touchdown.
Yeah, but Jordan Reed, monster. Just a monstrous. His arrow is pointing way up
long term
for next year. Now let's talk immediate. I would not be surprised at all if Jordan Reed sits out week 17. When you're talking about resting, I think that Washington is going to full rest a lot of people. They have some linemen who are banged up, I think will be rested. If you rest linemen, you rest Kirk Cousins. You don't put him out there behind backups. And so if you are a Washington skill player owner like D-Jax, I mean, these guys have been banged up, so you need to prepare for them not to play this week.
Rule 86 is that if Jordan Reed is healthy, you play him, because the reason that rule exists is because he's so often not healthy. He's had a pretty healthy year this year, but that's a really good point. I mean, if I'm the coach, Reed is important to your playoff chances. I would rest him as well.
And we'd be remiss if we didn't mention a few more names at tight end. Vance McDonald, Travis Kelce, and Delaney Walker still got it done. Horrible game for Tennessee. We mentioned that he might take a bump down. It did seem like he wasn't being targeted early. Kind of got it done with the quantity of catches in PPR. He probably didn't do much for you in standard. But Kelce, he flashed again. Scored a touchdown.
I was yang for Vance McDonald.
Oh, were you? Were you?
Travis Kelce, that was nice for him to finally
and
get
the Cardinals.
Thanks, Kelce.
The Cardinals defense, Jason pointed it out, in standard leagues.
The number 1 scoring fantasy option was the Arizona Cardinals defense, I believe credited with 9 sacks. Couple fumble recoveries.
One of the things we like to bring up here, and as NFL fans out there, you remember, who Dwight Freeney is. And I believe he's on the Cardinals now. He was signed to a veteran contract, much like John Abraham was signed last year to the Cardinals. They kind of signed these over-the-hill, quote-unquote, pass rushers. But one of the interesting things about Dwight Freeney is that his contract is incentive-laden, and he gets paid per sack.
Yeah,
and that's it.
You go out. You want $100,000? Well, just go tackle that guy behind the line of scrimmage.
And he had 3 yesterday, and I believe his contract is at $200,000.
It's at $200,000 now
per sack. And so it's just every time he does it, I picture him going to the sideline and
getting a check.
A big old one of those giant sweepstakes checks They walk over, and he files it away, and then he goes back out on the field and gets another $200K. I mean, that's just a nice way to incentivize.
It's like the mouse that comes and gets his cheese, and then he goes and does his thing and gets his cheese.
Right.
That's Dwight Freeney.